welcome back to another Thursday upload from Boys the Buffalo Happy Hour. Today we have another educational episode for you. With these Thursday episodes, we try to do some sort of top 5 or educational series or some whiskey knowledge or anything along those lines to be able to provide you guys with some insight into either how whiskey works or our preferences. Today we have a special upload that is really near and dear to my heart, and it is the locations of Scotland and how they impact whiskey.
Hopefully I'm not still sitting here after an hour and Derek's still smiling and all chipper and going absolutely off the rails talking about how the grass in this territory is higher than the grass in this territory. So we shall see what we have in store, friends.
Scotch just makes me so happy. I was taking the notes for today's episode and I just got all goosey inside.
You're probably like, okay, I have to delete that. Okay, I have to delete that.
I did a dry run and it was 4 hours long. And I'm like, this wouldn't be an upload. No, we're going to try to make this as super short and sweet as possible. It is going to be a little bit challenging because we do have 6 regions to talk about, but we're going to keep this as short and simple and easy for you guys to understand as possible. If you want us to go more in depth as to what we mean by a certain territory, feel free to leave a comment down below and we can do an upload specific to that. But before we dive into the real meat of this upload, we have to thank our sponsors.
Thanks, Addies.
All right, so, no, I'm just kidding. You have to download their app because that is where a lot of these products that you'll find us talking about today will be found, or if they're not found particularly, these ones, they will be other whiskey from the regions of Scotland that we talk about. So download their app. It's at Addie's Wine and Spirits on the Google Play and the Apple Store, and then you can use that app to buy whatever you would like when it comes down to whiskey. And they also have a ton of wine with an in-house wine sommelier as well that you can look at, and you can talk to him about what type of wine he would recommend you getting.
And they're family owned.
Correct.
And operated. So keeping it close to home.
Absolutely. So I want to warn you guys, this is a blanket statement over all Scotch. When we go through these regions, it is basically a rule of thumb. It's not actual law. So some of the things that we talk about are kind of what normally happens, but there's always going to be a one-off when you talk about some of the certain either flavors or blending processes or whatever in these areas, just because obviously they can do whatever they want and it's not law driven. So I wanted to throw that out there. What is single malt Scotch? Single malt Scotch is a liquid that comes out of Scotland that is made with fresh water, malted barley, and yeast. That is how you make single malt Scotch. That's what makes what everybody generally thinks the perfect single malt is coming from Scotland. And then from the Scotch laws, it has to be made in Scotland for 3 years and aged in oak. So that's what is called, that's how you get it to be able to call Scotch. Anything outside of Scotch, it cannot be called Scotch. Mm-hmm. All right? Anything outside of Scotland, it cannot be called Scotch. You know what I'm talking about. So,
you know the thing.
Other varieties of Scotch whiskey, obviously outside of single malt, you have single grain whiskey, you have blended grain whiskey, you have blended single malt. You have all these different types of terms, but for the general consensus of this conversation, we are going to be talking about single malt Scotch and how those flavors kind of, you kind of taste them, you know?
I can already tell you're super excited about this.
There's just so much to talk about, dude, and we just got to make sure that we hit all of it. So the first region that you're probably going to know about, because we've talked about it in various episodes, we've reviewed quite a bit of whiskey from here, and it's the Spay region. So the Spay region is probably your favorite, right?
Yeah, it's fruity.
Yeah. So
less peaty.
It stretches from Inverness all the way across to Deveron, and it's the most concentrated region of distilleries in the world, with over 60% of the country's distilleries located in this region. And we'll throw up a picture of the map. It is a very small region, kind of surrounded by the Highlands, and 60% of the distilleries are in this small region. So it's quite compact with a ton of different distilleries.
It's crazy what they can do with the same water source to create so many different spirits.
Yeah, and with Speyside too specifically, they generally taste very light. They all have the same essence of tasting notes, I guess, but they're a little bit different. So some notable ones that you've seen either on our show or you've heard of before, Balvenie is from Speyside, Glenlivet is from Speyside, Glenfiddich is from Speyside, and those are just some very notable ones that you've probably heard of before coming out of the Speyside region. Some flavors that are typical for Speyside whiskeys. You get very low peated to virtually unpeated whiskey. We'll get to peated once we talk about Isla, which is my favorite and your least favorite. But it's very low peated to virtually unpeated. It's very light. There's some sweet characteristics in there as well. Some fruited notes like light fruit like apple and pear come out quite a bit in this region particularly. And then it's followed by floral, nutty, and then sometimes some deep red fruits. Speyside likes to age their stuff in sherry casks as well as Highlands. So you get a lot of the sherry imparting its flavor on the whiskey as well. So some of those deep notes of cherry and like plum and stuff like that. So that's Speyside. And that is the one that we would probably recommend you start with if you're getting into Scotch.
Agreed. I started here and then I moved into... I can't read too well, so I'm trying to figure out which, if you've seen our last Wednesday Whiskey Review, have a laugh. I did go to college, but my next favorite region is probably the way you're ranking it. This is what I've moved into in regards to my Scotch palate, and I'm starting to like it way more.
What am I doing next?
I don't know.
You said you
I know. Say it. Say it.
This is Highlands, but I can go to Isla if you want.
No, I actually like Highlands.
Do you? Okay, so Highlands Mike actually does like. So it's located north of Glasgow all the way up to Thurso. So it's the northern region, obviously, of Scotland from Glasgow up, except for that area that is Speyside. So Highlands kind of surrounds Speyside, but since Speyside is so significant in its own way, surrounded by the Spay River, that's why they call themselves Speyside. So Highlands, roughly 25 distilleries are in the Highlands. Most notable distilleries are Glenmorangie, Oban, and Dalwhinnie.
So the first two is what's changed my opinion.
Oh, really?
Because Addie's,
I remember that.
Another shout out, has that starter pack. And then Oban I've had a few times. I didn't buy them. They were gifts to other people. I was just right place, right time, able to enjoy it. And it is extremely good, especially with a cigar. Thanks to Addie's, you can buy both of those distilleries in their store too, which is incredible. So, yeah, I like those.
Yeah, they're very good. And some characteristics of flavors that you notice with these, it's very... like there's a ton of different flavors associated with this region because it's so large and it impacts so many different areas of Scotland. So there's no like single note that you can kind of point on to the Highlands, but generally they are flavors can range from the typical Isla region, which is the heavy peat and smoky, to the typical Speyside, so the floral notes. Those are kind of typical to what you would find in Highlands, both of everything. And generally, Northern Highlands is a little bit more heathery and spicy, and the Southern Highlands is more light, fruity, and a little nutty. Some other flavors, you can find some heavy smoke, heathery, ginger, vanilla, some molasses, spice, plum, raisins, and fruitcake.
When's the last time we had molasses?
Yesterday, actually.
What are you...
I'm just kidding.
Out of your mind.
Next up, we have Lowlands, and you guessed it right. It's below Highlands.
A little molasses and eggs.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Pretty good. So Lowlands, it is south of Glasgow. So Highlands is north of Glasgow, and then Lowlands is south of Glasgow. And normally in Lowlands, they triple distilled products. And the triple distillation actually brings out a lot of fruity and interesting notes. So one of the ones that you've seen on our show is Auchentoshan. Auchentoshan is one of basically 5 distilleries located in the Lowlands. It's a very large area, but there's not a ton of distilleries there. And for me personally, what I always associated with Auchentoshan and other lowland distilleries is melon, cantaloupe, like those really like watery fruit, like...
Shout out Josh Allen.
Yeah, they're so good, man. I love them. But that's a lot what you'll find with this lowland region. Other notes that you'll find are ripe fruit, wet grass, a little creamy. Some toffee notes come through quite a bit as well here. And then nutmeg. That's kind of the overall essence of what you'll find in the lowlands region. But generally, I would say that these are the 3 regions that you want to stick to if you're starting out. I would definitely recommend going to Speyside first. Highlands, Lowlands, stick to those because those are a little bit more friendlier and can give you a wide variety of different flavor notes without being completely off-putting to you. Now, I want to stop here, though, before we go into the other 3, to let you guys know that there is a poster out there that I actually bought with my own money when we first started this podcast that helped me in my Scotch journey. There is this awesome poster. It goes from, like, rich, delicate, floral and smoky.
They might be able to see it in the first 30 episodes of our show.
And I'll throw it up right here too. It is such a good resource to have. So take a screenshot of this. I highly recommend you doing that and sharing this with your friends, because when I was first getting into Scotch, I was like, where on this scale do I feel comfortable trying my Scotch in, and what whiskey falls in there? It's a plot basically of everything. And you can see if you like floral and rich, well, check out this area. If you like smoky and rich, good luck to you, but try this area. So it's a very good resource to have. Definitely screenshot this video, share this with some friends, because this is something that you will want to have as you start your Scotch journey. So next, my favorite. What?
No pun intended on journey.
Oh. So my favorite region is Isla. It's not Islay.
Correct. It's spelled Islay, but it's pronounced Isla.
Yeah. This is what everybody gets wrong. I got it wrong at first too, but people will correct you on it because they're proud to love Isla Scotch. So it's called Isla. Get it right.
Because they love their Scotch.
Oh, yeah. So Isla is an island on the east-west line. It's on the west coast of Scotland. I get my east-west, left-right mixed up quite a bit.
Perfect.
When I'm thinking,
Cool. So I definitely won't hang out with you in the woods.
Yeah, don't.
Oh, east? I thought you said west.
I thought you said west. So it's on the west coast of Scotland. It's only about 25 miles long in its entirety. So it's a very small island, but there are about 10 distilleries located in Isla. Isla is very wet and boggy, so finding dry wood is difficult on that island. So that is why they've resourced and used peat to burn their malted barley, or to burn their barley to start that germination process, so the enzymes and the yeast can interact with it. So that is why it is very typical for the Isla Scotches to be very peaty. Some of you may know that term. It's very distinct. If you've had Scotch, you know what peat is.
Yes, you are drinking Mother Earth, and it smells and tastes like you're eating moss. So
yeah. So
that.
Some distilleries in the area that you might know that are very hard with that Isla name are Ardbeg, Lagavulin, and Laphroaig. Those are the two main ones in the area. There are some other distilleries in the area, particularly I believe Bunnahabhain does not use peat, but it is on the Isla region. So that's why I said, generally speaking, these are good rules. But Lagavulin, Laphroaig, and Ardbeg are kind of your three main ones that if you wanted to try Isla whiskey, definitely stick with one of those. So some flavors that are associated with the Isla region, you have peaty, smoky, some tar. I remember when I first read tar on the back of Ardbeg Wee Beastie, I'm like, tar? Do I really want to try this? And I loved it. Leather, seaweed, medicinal, iodine, vegetal. Those are some terms to describe those.
Yep, ivermectin. So the crazy thing about this particular Scotch is that when you drink it, you have to be mindful of what you have afterwards. Reason being, this is going to ruin your palate. It's going to scorch your mouth in regards to eliminating taste. So when you transition into something other than Laphroaig, it's not going to taste the same. Yeah. So just be mindful of that. It's not like it's going to burn your mouth like you just drank fire. It's not doing that. What it's doing is it's just ruining your taste buds to the point where the Scotch tastes good and everything else tastes weird. So just keep that in the forefront of your, front cortex lobe, brain thing, and then you'll be all right.
If you have Lagavulin and then you go to Glenlivet, you won't be able to taste Glenlivet at all. That's what Mike's trying to say. At all.
Yeah, it'll just basically just be like a wet fluid.
Love it. I like my fluids to be wet. So the next region is Campbelltown. So Campbelltown and the next one are very not well known, as you just shatter the glass. They're not very well known. Campbelltown region is located, it's a peninsula close to Isla on the obviously west coast of the mainland. And this area used to have the largest number of whiskeys in all of Scotland. But after World War II, they suffered a lot of supply and demand issues, and their quality of the liquid went down significantly. So they ended up not really producing and staying or going out of business, and only a few left. There's about 3 distilleries right now left in the Campbelltown region. And most notable distilleries are Glen Scotia, Springbank, and Glengale.
Have you had any of these?
Yes, I've had Glen Scotia and Springbank. Some notable flavors with these are very briny. They're also rich, nutty, salty, sulfury. dried fruit and toffee. So you're going to notice a lot of the same characteristics with a lot of these regions, but each one kind of specializes in something different. I would say that the Campbelltown region is much more briny and rich than the other ones, but you still get that toffee note that's similar to like Highlands and all that stuff. So that's Campbelltown. It's really not well known because there's only 3 distilleries there, but it's good.
Good deal.
The last region is not technically a region if you're looking at Isla or Scotland's like legal whiskey regions. It's part of Highlands, but they call it the Islands. Nailed it. And it gets even more confusing when you look at Highland Park. You'd think that that's from Highlands, but that's actually from Islands.
So the last region is Islands?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a ton of different islands on the coast of Scotland. Most of them aren't inhabited with people. So the number of distilleries are sparse because of the fact that there's really not like many people living on the islands.
Sounds like where I want to be.
Yeah, seriously, I would love that. Some people consider islands as part of the Highland region, so think of them as the same vein as Highlands when you're talking about flavor profile. Most of the islands off of Scotland are not inhabited. So only under 10 distilleries are in the islands region. Most notable distilleries are Highland Park and Talisker, so you might recognize 2 of those distilleries. We haven't had either of them on our show. I've had both of them in real life, and they're both very good.
Oh, in real life?
Yeah, in real life, not the fake life, not
5D or whatever it is.
5D. What's that?
Yeah, it's where you can it's the metaverse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would love to have whiskey in the metaverse. You think Mark Zuckerberg likes whiskey?
Oh my goodness.
He likes oil, robot. All right, so some flavors we're going to get taken down. Some flavors that are typical of the island whiskey. Again, it's pretty wide variety, obviously, because there's so many different islands ranging from all the way up north above the Highlands to basically right next to the Lowlands. So there's a lot of influences coming from both of those regions. So pretty similar to everything else. Highland Park is very malty and tastes like smoke, basically.
Oh.
Nailed it.
Smoky like smoke.
Yep, smoky like smoke. And then Talisker is more on the peaty side with some acidic fruits and sea salt. So you're going to be tasting quite a wide range of flavors when you look at this region particularly. Some other notes are salty. It's a little dry, vegetal like the Isla region. Fruity, caramel, and nutty.
Perfect.
So that's the 6 regions of Scotland, my friend.
So if anybody finds any of these super interesting and wants us to do a deep dive into that, like Derek said at the beginning of this video, if you're still with us, God bless, drop a comment and we will dive into that specific region for you to then answer any other lingering questions. And then if you have questions on that video, do your own research. So,
correct. Or if you want us to do a compare of 2 different regions, we can do that as well. We can compare Isla and Spay side, obviously having Spay side first, but we can do a comparison too. So let us know what you want us to do and we will do it. We are at your will.
Perfect. Sounds good, everyone. Remember, like, comment, share, and subscribe to help us grow. We will see you next week for another fun-filled Thursday episode. Derek, what is it going to be? We don't know. So we will see you next week where we figure out what to do on the Wednesday. So I appreciate everyone's time. Derek, take us out.
Everybody, please remember to always drink responsibly, be a good person, and Michael,
do not litter.
We're out.